Hello, everyone. This is the best academic practice models for Black students, NAACP, North Carolina State Conference data training session. I want to welcome you all to our training session today. I'm the facilitator and moderator. My name is Kamika Sidbury, and I'm a mother, educator, advocate, and data enthusiast, aka parent teacher data analyst. And I'm also a proud Wilmingtonian here in North Carolina. I've been in education over the last 20 years. I've served as an EC paraeducator, middle grades teacher, adult high school instructor, and academic and learning coordinator. I'm a proud graduate of North Carolina A&T State University with a BS or a Bachelor of Science in Chemistry. I also have a Master of Arts in Teaching and a Master of Science in Higher Education with a concentration in adult education. And I also have multiple educational certifications. Currently, I serve as the North Carolina point person for the NAACP's Best Academic Practice Models for Black Students. I am also North Carolina NAACP Committee representative, and I serve as the New Hanover County NAACP Branch Education Chair. My passions include community literacy and educational advancement, family empowerment, and collectively community engagement. I am one that believes education is the passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today. That is a quote from Malcolm X. As I recently stated, I am a proud Wilmingtonian. And Wilmingtonian, I often quote or look at David Walker's appeal to seek guidance, and he is also a Wilmingtonian. David Walker's an abolitionist, writer, and community activist. He showed us how we can seek out knowledge by using the power of the pen. He was born in Wilmington, North Carolina, to a free mother and an enslaved father. This is why he was also a free citizen. Walker realized the power of the written word to create change, whether through newspapers such as the Freedom Journal or through political pamphlets. This realization is likely what inspired him to write his appeal to the colored citizens of the world, which was published in 1829. When we are able to look at the appeal, we can see where Walker urged Black resistance to slavery and racism. He unsparingly attacked slavery's defenders, including the enslavers themselves, the government, and the churches. Walker filled his appeal with biblical, classical, and other historical reference, which led some to question the authorship. And so, even back in 1829, the articulation of David Walker's words, the Wilmingtonian that he was able to appeal and ask individuals across this nation to fight for their freedom. We have some trauma in Wilmington also. And so we have the 1898 coup d'etat. That is something that a lot of individuals often associate with Wilmington's history, but this is something that happened, and we are continuing to have the effects of it. So back in November of 1898, or just after the Civil War, the residents of Wilmington, um, the Black community, made themselves a political force, exercising the rights of citizenship guaranteed to them after the Civil War by the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. Across the South, such activity had triggered deadly white violence against Black voters. Organizers and office holders in the decades since the war. But in Wilmington, a city of 20,000, the votes of 8,000 Black men helped a rare biracial fusion alliance to elect candidates of both races. So when a white supremacy campaign happened, it changed everything. The white terrorists used media to print falsehoods about black men preying on white women and even stockpiling guns. They targeted the Fusion office holders and the black newspaper, summoned militias and white vigilantes known as the Red Shirts. They terrorized black voters at the polls and by force took over the local government. The estimate of the number of black people killed ranged from dozens to hundreds. In 2006, a state commission study described the coup in detail and blamed all levels of government for not intervening. It said black merchants and workers suffered losses after 1898 in terms of job status, income, and access to capital. Black businesses either moved or closed, and some 2,100 black residents fled. Black literacy rates plunged. By the turn of the century, Southern states were using poll taxes, literacy tests, and grandfather clauses to deny black men the right to vote, which the 15th Amendment had guaranteed them since 1870. Between 1896 and 1902, the number of black voters registered in North Carolina fell from 126,000 to 6,100. Wilmington did not elect another black candidate until 1972, and her name was Dorothy B. Johnson, and she became an elected official by serving on the New Hanover County School Board. But all is not lost when we start talking about education and the educational outcomes and what we can do when we work as a collective. So Williston Senior High, known as the greatest school under the sun by anyone in the Wilmington community and probably in the nation because there are Willistonians all over the nation, was a school of distinction for black students prior to desegregation. In a 2003 oral history interview, Mrs. Bertha Todd, a former Williston Senior High School librarian, and she's also a local historian, and she has several books out there, um, and you might could find one out there right now. She recounts the following situation that happened at Williston. One year, when they took their SAT scores, she's referring to the students, their scores were so high that Mr. Rowland, the New Hanover County School Superintendent, didn't believe it. He didn't believe that students had scored this high. So he made them retake the test, and they scored high again. They had gotten nurturing, so she references this. The students had gotten nurturing, they had gotten a little push, they had counseling, and they were made to feel God made you. You are somebody, and you work like you know that. And that was the Williston way. So today's agenda, we're going to go ahead and get right into it. We want to understand the mission of the NAACP and the best academic practice models for Black students, and how these two forces are colliding and making sure that this works happen as one collective. We're going to do a general overview of North Carolina's testing and accountability program. We're going to talk about the process, and the process includes where we review, verify, validate, and authenticate our data results. And we're going to do a small recap at the end, and I got some additional resources and contact information for you. So the collective. So the NAACP's mission is to achieve equity, political rights, and social inclusion by advancing policies and practices that expand human and civil rights, eliminate discrimination, accelerate the well-being, education, and economic security of Black people and all persons of color. The best academic practice models for Black students campaign's goal is to identify, document, acknowledge, and promote pre-K through 12 public schools where 50% or more of Black African descendant students are achieving proficiency on their state's annual reading, English language arts, and math examinations. We're going to do a little policy overview and just talk about the assessments in the state of North Carolina. The Department of Public Instruction has everything that has to do with public education in the state of North Carolina. The assessment that we're going to kind of hone in on when we're talking about collecting data today is called the EOGs, and that means end of grade tests. This is our state mandated test for grades 3 through 8. The North Carolina end of grade tests are standards-based achievement tests in the areas of reading and mathematics for grades 3 through 8. They also have a science test that's mandated, and that's only for grades 5 through 8. The reading and mathematics tests are aligned to North Carolina standard course of study. And the science test is aligned to North Carolina essential standards. And reading and mathematics, all students in membership at grades 3 through 8, according to Power School, and we're going to a new system which is called Infinite Campus. I want to say statewide next school year, including students who have been retained in grades 3 through 8 are expected to participate with or without accommodations in this standard administration of the EOG in reading and mathematics. Federal and state policy require that all eligible students, including English learners and students with disabilities, be included in the statewide testing program in one of the following categories. So here are the 3 categories: standard test administration with accommodations, and or a state designated alternate assessment with or without accommodations. Our state designated alternate assessment is called the North Carolina Extend 1. The Every Student Succeeds Act requires that states ensure that the total number of students assessed in reading, mathematics, and science using the alternate assessment based on the alternate academic achievement standards does not exceed 1% of the total number of all students assessed in the subject area. The end of grade tests are administered per state and federal requirements, and these are a compiled list of those state and federal requirements here. Now, when we start looking at, okay, well, what is the cutoff score, or what does all of this mean, whether I know my child or students are actually proficient or not, and how do we kind of dig into that data? So this is information regarding the North Carolina EOG level, achievement levels per grade level. And so we're going to go first into like breaking down the achievement level. There are 4 levels for the North Carolina end of grade test: non-proficient, not proficient, level 3, level 4, and level 5. With not proficient, a student does not meet the criteria for being proficient or being college and career ready. At level 3, the student does meet the level of proficiency, but they do not meet the criteria for being college and career ready. Level 4 and 5, they meet both. They meet the expectation of proficiency, and they meet the expectation of being college and career ready. If you look on the right, those are the cutoff scores for reading and math. And so for each grade level, for grades 3 through 8. Now, the alternate assessment, which I just documented or just told you guys, it is the North Carolina Extend 1. And these are the grade level achievement levels, again, by grade level on the right. You can see that information. Now, when we start looking at the achievement level and what does that mean? It is the same thing, but the North Carolina Extend 1 does not go to a level 5. It only has 3 different levels. That's not proficient, where students are not meeting grade level expectations for proficiency standards or college and career readiness standards. Level 3, where they do meet the proficiency standard, and or level 4, where they meet both the proficiency standard and the college and career readiness standard. And so this is the alternate assessment that is taken by students who are um, who are severely profound when we start looking at diagnoses. And it's only about, and we're going to talk a little bit more about it, but maybe about 1.5, I mean 1.1% of the total student population within the state takes the North Carolina STEM 1. Now, this is our process. The process is the journey to identifying the best academic practice models for students in the state of North Carolina. Step 1, review. Step 2 is the verification process. Step 3 is the validation process. And then last step is the authentication step. And so, or process. But we just have to understand that each one is so important. So we're gonna break it down a little bit more, and I'm gonna tell you how my journey within the state of North Carolina looks. And this may change from state to state, but this is what I did as a point person for the state of North Carolina. All right. So the first thing I was able to do was access the public information disaggregated data. Anyone has access to this information. So anyone, if you're located within the state or you're outside the state, this information is actually located on DPI's website. So I took this zip drive, downloaded it, and if you notice, you have two files. You have a text document or a text tab document, and then you have what we call a description file. And so within this description file, it gives you information about all what every column means, what all the descriptors are when you open up the document. And so this is what it will look like. So you have what each column, when you have the abbreviations, what they mean, and each of the codes under some of those columns, what they mean also. And so if you look here, you have all the assessment types. You have what we call a regular, standard administration. That's what RG stands for, and we're going to talk more about that. And then you have information related to your extend 1. Now, once you go into and download, what I did was take that text tab and I actually downloaded it as a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet. So I opened it, I went into Excel, I opened it, and then I did a search for all documents. So when you go to open, once you download, you can go to this PC, and then you can open the file, but you're going to open it into Excel. And instead of saying all Excel files, you're going to say all files. And then if you see right here, here's that text tab right there. And then I open it in Excel. And so it may take a little time to download, so I'm gonna just show you what it looks like. And so this is the wrong file. All right, so this is what that disaggregated data looks like. Now, I'm gonna go later on, I'm gonna tell you the issue with this and why, even though this was my starting point, this is just a way, this is why you may have some issues. So we're gonna talk more about that later on. So that was my initial review phase. All right, so as I stated, I'm gonna reinstate all the steps I took. So I accessed the public information, disaggregated data for 2023 through the 2024 school year. Then I downloaded the textile file and opened it as an Excel spreadsheet. So I then filtered the data set by subgroup, which was Black, test type, which was regular or standard administration, the grade, which is GS, which is a collection of the 3 through 8. So then we can just identify the schools. We didn't want to the later on. So that was to identify the schools that were meeting the criteria. The subject would have either been math or reading, and the percent grade level proficiency. That number sort that was there. That's why you have to make sure that everything is in place. And I can show you right here. You're going to go to number filters and you're going to say greater than or equal to 50. And then I'm going to go back because I just want to make sure that you see. When we go here, you're going to choose either reading or math. And for this one, I'm going to choose math. Then for grade, when I was telling you about GS, it's right here. And for type, initially I didn't do all. And full disclosure, I did a regular or standard administration. Subgroup, which I should have did first, is going to be Black. And so this is the filtered data set. Let me put it all on the screen so everyone can view. I thought I was, might have did too much. And so what I did was took this data right here so I can see the numbers in the information within the data set. And I placed it here. And I ended up with 245 results for math. And I want to say 158 because we have to subtract 1 for reading. And so that is in the review phase. Now, from guidance from Mr. Matt Wilson, Mr. Jimmy Matt Wilson, who is the co-founder of the Family Empowerment Institute and the lead on the the best academic practice models for Black students campaign, I submitted a public records request. And so this is when we get into the verification process or the verification stage of the process. And so I submitted a public records request. In the state of North Carolina, you have to submit a Google form. And it does outline if it's something costs too much, or it asks you whether you're a community member or an educator, and it just asks you your role and just to, I guess, filter out the data. So I submitted this information and it says, pursuant to public record request law detailed in chapter 132, I would like to obtain a copy of public records from the North Carolina Department of Instruction. And I asked to get all of the schools, school code and name within the state where the subgroup Black had a grade level proficient of, or GLT, because I used all the language within the descriptors, of at least 50% with the subject areas of reading and math. And I put the abbreviations they had on the NCEOG for the composite grades, which was GS, during the regular administration. So I use the regular administration or standard administration. And this may not necessarily be the case, and you'll see why at the end. For the 2023-2024 school year. And when I say this whole process was a learning, so this was the first thing I learned. Once I got a response back from the North Carolina Department of Instruction Communication Department, we were able to get another resource. And within that resource, you can find it here. So it's I already downloaded it. And then they said you can, so using this information is publicly available here. So she sent the link for that. You can filter and sort this document for information in your request. More information, which the accountability data sets and reports, that's what we just went to through the disaggregated data form, which was in the review process. But this was not, I didn't see this. And so if you notice, all the information is here. These are all the assessments that students take within the state of North Carolina, right here. And so for this campaign, we're only looking at EOC, EOG, and EOCs. And so this has already been filtered. For math 3 through 8, you see where you have your student. This includes the district name because the other form only included the PSU code. And so PSU in the state of North Carolina means public school unit. Any type of public school, any type of whether it's a public charter or it's a district school, they get a public school unit code. And so it also includes the district and the school name, the grade level type. And so this is for math. Everything has been filtered and sorted, but I noticed one issue. So I had to ask a clarifying question. And then that's when we get to the validation phase. So during the validation process, just like I showed you, um, I filtered the data the same way. I attempted to filter the data the same way using subgroup Black, the regular administration type, the grade, the GS grade level, subject math or reading, and the percent grade level proficiency equal to, and I could until I got to the test type. The state of North Carolina on that school assessment and other indicator data spreadsheet that we had the privy to have, they combine all assessment. Is an inclusive data. So they don't break it down by it's stand one, all, and regular or standard administration. They have all the assessments that were taken by students within that subgroup for that particular test. And so the issue, that's why I wrote the issue, there was not a filter for test type. And the download of the test tab document indicated that all data wasn't fully downloaded. So when I actually went through this process, all the data didn't download. We had more results on the school assessment and other indicator data form for 23, 24 than we had with the disaggregated data. So I was like, okay, is it that much of a difference? And so then I submitted I submitted a clarifying question to the North Carolina Department of through the public records request to the North Carolina Office of Communications. And so I thanked them, but I had to say, I had a clarifying question. And the clarifying question was, does this include all, um, both the regular administration and the North Carolina STEM 1 assessment results, or only the regular administration? Because I had to see, okay, is it an issue with what was downloaded, or was it an issue with the number of alternate assessments that were given to our two Black students? And so the response was, that yes, the regular administration and the regular EOGs and ELCs and the alternates have been included in three and above and four and above um, results. And so when we look at the grade level proficiency result, that's a level 3, 4, or 5. All right. Even though the columns are broken down, all of that is included in that number. So we knew we had to conduct a meeting. So we were able to conduct a meeting, and that was through this is the authentication process. Or we're just trying to make sure what we're presenting to the NAACP, whether we're looking at the state conference, the national, well, we're looking through the state, the local, or um, the national conference, we got to make sure that what we're presenting is accurate. And so I was able to reach out to the North Carolina, to the Department of Instruction's Office of Testing and Accountability, and we were able to meet with a great expert. And he took us through. He said the issue with the public file, when we're desegregating the data, it can't be used. We can't use Microsoft Excel to upload that data because all of it's not going to upload. And so what we had to do was go through Access. And so then we can filter it for our subgroup, for our test type, for our grade level, for the subject area, and for the grade level proficiency that we were looking for. And so that was one of the key factors. And so I'm gonna show you, once I uploaded that same text file that we saw earlier when I uploaded, so you can see it here, you're able to filter it. And so I filtered it. All right. And so everything is right here. And we got clarification. So we had a record of 449, um, 449 for, I want to say math. We had a record of 449 for math. However, when we did, when I went back and I filtered it for the standard administration, there was an increase of 443. So we needed to make sure that we do not that we have a conversation about that discrepancy. It's a small discrepancy of 4, but we still have to make sure as a state conference that we have that conversation. And so when we look at reading, we have to also, there's a small discrepancy between the standard administration and the inclusive test type of the extend one and the standard administration. All right. And so, but the good news is that when we use the school assessment and other indicated data form, or the spreadsheet that was prepared to us that was provided to us by the state, it was accurate. We got everything that we needed. And just a small note, and I'm gonna go back to it. 7,000. This means that when we look at the extend to assessments that were administered, when we look at the extend to assessments that were administered, again, it was only 1.1% of the total student population that were administered an extend one assessment or the alternate assessment. I wanted to also touch base and show everybody, the state of North Carolina just released the accountability dashboard. And so what that is, the accountability dashboard is a dashboard where anyone in the community, any parent, any teacher, just anyone can go through and look at the various components. So I'm gonna pull up New Hanover County. And so you can do a search. And you can look at the various schools within New Hanover County. And we can say, um, let's try. I don't want to pull up. What was it? And so we're gonna. And so it should be where you can look at the history of the school, their performance grade. You can look at their growth over time, their growth score, the school performance. So this is a high school. So it doesn't necessarily meet the criteria of EOGs, but this is just one of the things that we have the ability to do. Now, it used to have for every subgroup, but I'm not seeing it over here. So I'm just trying to show that you can filter this information out. Right. So, reflection and recap. I will tell anyone that this work can be done if you are one that is enthusiastic about data or you're a data enthusiast. And as I've been just named, the or parent or teacher data analysis, but this work can be done. The the access to data is not limited. And when we start looking at it, it allows us to be able to tell the story a little bit more clearly when we're given the numbers. We can see, we can see what work is being done because as we know, everything is really in the details. It is in the details. It allows us to have genuine conversations and look where we can celebrate successes and understand where there needs to be areas of support. As history tells us, we are able to do so much together, even if it is advancing or being resilient after traumatic events, such as in Wilmington's history, where where we were still able to educate. Wilmington's history is probably one of the best told stories that anyone in education could ever hear. There are the light that shines through anybody when they have the best education possible never goes away. And so this process is always and will be just simplified and worked. And I just mean it from the bottom of my heart that I know that this campaign is going to change the perspective that we have when it comes to advancing education through the lives of Black communities, students, and families. Here are multiple resources that can be found throughout the presentation. And here are the links. And these are also resources from the Department of Public Instruction here in the state of North Carolina. And I also included my contact information just in case you had any additional questions. I thank you for your time and have a wonderful day.